check your offer letter carefully to make sure that you know exactly what deposit you need to pay. You can, if you wish, pay more, and then that amount will be taken off the amount that you need to show to UKVI. UKVI like it very much when students pay higher deposits because it adds to their credibility. It means that it proves that you really want to come here to study. You're not just paying the minimum amount possible. And then when you arrive, you're just going to disappear and never attempt your studies in the first place, which is what they're worried about. So you're more than welcome to pay more than your deposit amount, but you need to have paid the minimum deposit before we can issue your CAS. You need to have uploaded all the documentation that has been asked of you on CAS Shield. And the reason we ask for all this documentation is because UKVI are going to ask for all that documentation. And the purpose of the CAS letter is to show that we've checked and put checks and balances in place so that we feel that if you apply for a visa, there shouldn't be any reason why you won't get one. So we need to check all that documentation. We need to go through it all, make sure it's correct. It ensures for us that you're serious, you're credible, you've got everything in place and ready to go. And it also then makes your life much easier when you make your visa application, because we've checked everything for you already. Okay, everything's in place. It should be nice and easy, so straightforward for you to hand in that documentation, and that will work towards your visa. And then the last thing we need to do, and these don't have to be done in any particular order, but the last thing is what we're going to talk about today, which is to have passed your CAS Shield credibility interview. Okay, and again, we'll get into why it's necessary for you to have done this interview, but it's a very, very important part of the CAS Shield process, and we need to again be sure about your credibility before you make your visa application. So all of those things need to be done. Once they're done and ready, we get your CAS letter, and we'll make all the checks. You'll get an email saying that we've checked everything and we're now processing your CAS letter. That normally takes a couple of days, and then it is to your advantage to make your visa application as soon as possible after you get your CAS letter. Okay, if you can make your visa application within the next 24 hours, absolutely fantastic. The sooner you do it, the quicker, the better, sorry. And that gives you more time to ensure that you get your visa on time. And it, again, also proves your credibility. If you have waited 1 or 2 weeks between getting your CAS and applying for your visa, UKVI look at that and go, well, why? What did you wait for? And this is all about proving your credibility. Okay? So, without further ado, what are we going to do today? Well, we're going to look at the nuts and bolts of the CAS Shield credibility interview. We're going to break it down into lots of sections. We're going to answer all the different questions that come up. Okay, the whys, the whats, the hows, the whens, the wheres of the credibility interview itself. Okay, because I want you to have as best an understanding of how it works as possible, and then as best of understanding of what is required of you. Okay, you may think it's very straightforward and very obvious, but for a lot of people, it is not the case at all. Okay, so we're going to try and get that across. So we're going to look at a few different sections. We're firstly going to talk about why the credibility interview is necessary. Okay, what's the point of it? Why do you have to do it in the first place? We're going to then break down the nuts and bolts of how it actually works, what you can expect when you start your interview. We're going to go through some ideas of what you can do to be successful, how you can structure your answers so you can get across the information that you need. We're going to talk in general about the kind of things that you're going to be asked. Okay, now I cannot, and I am not allowed by UKVI to coach you or give you set answers or how to respond to the different questions. Okay, I couldn't do it anyway, because if I give you generic answers to the questions, they're not going to relate to you necessarily specifically. They're going to come across very generically, and you would fail anyway. Because again, this is about your credibility. It's about proving your credibility, and credibility is about you personally. Can't be the same answer for you as it would be for everybody else. So there would be no point me even trying to do that. Okay. It's really helpful if you can think of this credibility interview in the same way as you'd think of preparing and undertaking, writing a paper, an academic paper, or sitting for an academic exam. Okay, nobody else can do it for you. It's got to be your words. In this case, you're speaking them rather than writing them down. And it's got to be your thoughts and your ideas. Now, you can go to places to get assistance for that. Okay, you can look things up and find out information. But at the end of the day, it has to be your work, if you want to put it that way. It's you. It's all about you, not anybody else. It has to be so you're going to have to take time to prepare, the same as you would do for writing a paper or doing an examination. You need to prepare. And again, you're going to get bored of me saying the words credibility and preparation because I'm going to say them a lot during this webinar because they're so important. If you do those things, you should have no problem at all. And then last off, we're going to have a little think about when you should attempt the interview, both in time and in conditions, etc., to make sure that you can do as well as you possibly can. So let's get on with things. Why is the credibility interview necessary? You may be sitting there thinking, well, I've done an English language competency test. If they want to know how good my English language is, they should go and check out the exam results that I got for my tests. But it's not about that. Okay, it really isn't about that. It's only partially about your English language ability. Okay, it's a credibility interview, not an English language skills interview. It is about your credibility, and it really is an integral part of your pre-CAS checks. Okay, you cannot get your CAS letter unless you pass. That's pretty integral. It's quite an important thing. And why is that the case? Why do we need to do this? Well, UKVI have expectations of us as a university to ensure that we have vetted your visa application. And that's what the CAS letter is. It's a vetting. So we vet your documentation and check to make sure it's all correct and in place and get back to you if it's not, or you haven't included everything you need to make sure everything's in place. And we also need to vet your credibility. Okay. The reasons we need to do that is because UKVI are very concerned. The UK government is very concerned about the number of people who are trying to enter the country via the student visa route who turn out not to be students at all, not to be credible students, who in the past have made application, have got their visa, arrived in country, and then have never studied, never turned up to the university or dropped out very shortly afterwards, and then stayed in the country illegally. Now, there's a big concern and a big debate in this country, which hopefully you know a little bit about already, because again, this is all down to your credibility. If you're coming here to study, hopefully you looked into what's going on in the country. There's a big concern in this country at the moment regarding immigration and the levels of immigration and how that works. And the government have got concerns, whether you agree with it or not, about the number of students or number of people who are coming in via the student visa route. So they need to be sure that if you're coming on a student visa, you intend to be a student. And that means you need to be and put yourself across as a credible student. You need to have the right academic background. You need to ensure you've got the funding in place. And you may well get called to a UKVI interview to test you to see if you really are a credible student. What do you know about the country you're coming to, the university, your course, your accommodation, etc., etc., etc. And any credible student who's done a bit of research and thought about it will be able to answer all of those questions quite clearly and quite easily. Okay, from the UKVI's view, you are spending a lot of money and putting a lot of time and effort and resource into coming to study in the UK. And nobody would do that without really having seriously researched and prepared and considered what they want to do, why they want to do it, and what the purpose of sitting their degree is, how it's going to aid them in the future, all those kind of things. They want to be able to talk to you about, and for you to say, I'm doing it because of X, Y, Z, whatever the reasons are, and the UKVI office can go, okay, yeah, that's that. You come across as a credible student. That's believable. You know, I think you've done the necessary preparation. I think you've really thought about this. and are sure of what you're doing and why you're doing it, and that there's good reasons for you coming here to do the course that you're doing. Okay, that's what all this is about. So by doing a CAS Shield interview, it gives us a really, really good idea and a good indication of how well you will probably do at UKVI interview. Now, I add one very, very large caveat to this. Okay, we do have students who do very well at the CAS Shield interview and then sometimes fail the UKVI interview and get refused a visa. And 99 times out of 100, the reason for that is they put a lot of work and a lot of effort into doing the CAS Shield interview and then went, phew, I've done it, I've passed, I don't need to worry anymore. And when they got called to UKVI interview, they'd forgotten everything that they prepared for the CAS Shield interview and hadn't done any additional work. And so the answers that they gave, because we get to see the refusal letters, the answers that they gave at UKVI interview would not have passed a CAS Shield interview. So you have to remember your CAS Shield interview is a dress rehearsal, the same as getting your CAS letter. It's a dress rehearsal. It's checking to make sure everything's okay. The thing that really matters is you getting your visa. Okay, you can't get your visa without the CAS, but your visa application, your visa interview, if you get called for one, and more people are getting called for UKVI interviews, they're the ones that really matter. So if you've prepared for your CAS, prepare even more for your UKVI visa interview, okay? Not less, because just because you pass your CAS Shield interview doesn't automatically mean you're going to pass your UKVI interview. I can't stress that enough. It's incredibly important. And I see it over and over with visa refusals, where I look at the questions or the answers to the questions and think, if the student have said this in their CAS Shield interview, they would not have passed. Okay, so you need to keep on top of it. It's really important. Now, 60% of all UKVI visa refusals are because students did not perform well at their UKVI credibility interview and were thus deemed as not credible students. So UKVI listened to that interview and went, I don't believe the student really wants to come here to be a student. I don't think that they've really thought enough about what they're doing. They can't answer these questions, so they can only give me generic information. And they, you know, I don't think they know anything about the course they're doing or where they're coming to study. I'm not going to let them in. So it's your performance that makes a difference. And again, nobody else can do that for you. Now, for us as a university, because we very carefully check and vet all your information and we work very closely with you to make sure everything's in place, it's probably more like 95% of the visa refusals we get as a university is because students are not deemed credible at UKVI interview. Okay, it's virtually everybody, because we don't get many people getting refused because they've not got the right documentation or whatever else, because we've checked it and we put all these things in place to make sure all that side should go well. So we see when we get visa refusals, thankfully we don't get too many, but when we do get them, it's normally because a student has not done well at their credibility interview. Okay, so again, I cannot stress the importance of being well prepared for that interview if you get called. And please don't sit there and think, well, if I get through my CAS Shield interview, I'll keep my fingers crossed and hopefully I won't get called to UKVI interview, because more and more and more people are being called as UKVI gets stricter and stricter and stricter. Okay, so again, sounds like I'm trying to scare you. I'm not. I'm just trying to make sure that you do the best preparation you possibly can. Like I said, it's only partially about your English language ability. So don't be worried too much if you're worried about your English language speaking skills a little bit. That's okay. As long as you get across your meaning, it will be understood and taken into consideration. That's the most important thing. Okay. And like I said, the main reason for this whole credibility interview is because UKVI want to see proof that you're a credible student. And that comes down to your personal reasons for why you decided to choose to study in the UK, why you chose to study at Bangor University, why you chose the course that you wish to take, etc., and what the reasons behind that are. Okay, you need to be able to get all those things across. And a bit of an analogy that I like to give is imagine that you were going on holiday and you were going to another country for the first time, maybe, and you were just going for 1 week. You're only going for 1 week, and you need to sort out your flights. You need to work out where you're going to stay. You need to think about what you're going to do while you're there, because you want to do some different things every day. You need to think about how much it's going to cost. You need to think about how much money you've got to take with you and whether it's going to cover all of the costs. You've got to be sure that you budget that money so you don't spend it all on the first day, and by the end of the week you haven't got enough money to feed yourself. You've got to think about your transportation, and you've got to think about the place you're going to, the culture, the safety, the general aspect of the city or whatever it is that you're going to. You've got to think about all those things. Okay, and we do that. And that's only if we go on holiday for 1 week. We're talking here about coming for, if you're an undergraduate, 3 years. If you're a postgraduate doing a master's, 1 year. If you're a postgraduate doing a PhD, 3, maybe 4 years. Okay, this is a very long time. And a credible student would have thought about all these things in advance. Because otherwise, how did you make the decision? Why did you choose here in the end rather than somewhere else? There has to be a credible reason for why you did that. And what you need to be able to do is express those reasons in the interview, whether it's the CAS Shield interview or the UKVI interview. So it's very clear about why you're doing it. Okay, and it has to be about why you're doing it and not why 100 other people might be doing it. It can't be generic answers. If you give generic answers, you're going to fail straight off, simple as that, because you're not giving any information about yourself, your personal circumstances, your personal reasons for making the decisions that you're making. Okay, you've got to get all those things across. So let's look into the nuts and bolts a little bit about how it all works. Now, the fact that you're here probably means that you're already registered with CAS Shield. When you got your offer from the university, whether it was conditional or unconditional, you would have also got an email from Enrollee saying, welcome to CAS Shield, please register as soon as possible. Okay, and you then click on the link, put in an email address, same email address as you use for your application, put in a username, hey presto, you're in CAS Shield. You're then asked to complete an info check, to put in, so answer lots of different questions about you, where you live, your passport, what study options you're doing, blah, 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 how you're going to finance and fund things. You complete all of that detail, finish that, and then what CAS Shield will do is it'll auto-populate a whole list of sections for documentation that you will need to upload. And then as you go along, you put all the correct documentation in those sections for us to go in and check to make sure they're correct. You will also, as soon as that is done, get an automatic invite to take your credibility interview. Okay, so please don't be sitting there thinking, when am I going to get the invite to my interview? You can take your interview anytime you like, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And the reason for that is it is a recorded interview. Instead of a person like me sitting here in front of you asking you questions, you will have questions come up on the screen for you to read, and you will then need to answer. Now, the reason it's done that way is because we may have tens of thousands of applications for places over the course of a year. Okay, we cannot do physically tens of thousands of face-to-face interviews. We just would not. We'd have to employ another kind of 30 people in order to do so. So we work with Enrollee, who run CAS Shield, who have a team of people around the world who watch your interviews. Okay, and again, I will stress that a lot, because we get a lot of questions saying that they think everything on CAS Shield is done by AI. It is not. Your interview is watched and assessed and scored by a human being. So it's very important that you know that. But they're just not sitting there asking you the questions. Instead of asking the question is just coming up on the screen, and then you answer it from there. Now, you will get asked 16 questions on the screen. The first two aren't scored. The first one will be asking you to repeat out loud a statement that says you understand the seriousness of the interview process, that any instances of cheating, deception, or fraud on your part will be taken very seriously, will lead to the removal of your offer, and could be further consequences depending on the kind of thing that you do, if you do intend to try and cheat the system. Now, I very much recommend that you don't do that. You will get caught. If you get caught, your offer will be withdrawn. You won't be able to come here and study again. You may well get reported to the authorities, so you may not be able to study at any other university either. We've had people try and do all sorts of weird and wonderful things. Okay, the thing that comes up most common, and we're the least, you won't get a pass, you'll get an automatic fail, but we will allow you to take another interview, is if students try and read answers that they've prepared beforehand. Okay, you won't be able to do this at UK Interview. When you're face to face with somebody, they'll know straight away whether you're reading or not. And if you try and read a pre-prepared answer, you will get your visa refusal. I've seen a visa refusal letter saying exactly that. So please don't go down that road. But the more serious attempts at cheating include having somebody else sit the interview for you, or having somebody off camera talking while you're kind of just mouthing the words. It's obvious, and we do use AI to try and detect those things, and we come up with the correct answer pretty much every single time. Again, you won't be able to do that kind of thing when you go to a UK VI interview. So what's the point of passing your CAS Shield interview by cheating? It's not going to get you any further than getting a CAS letter. It's not going to get you your visa. Okay, so don't go down that road. Please don't go down that road. I'm pretty sure none of you will. But you've now read out a statement saying that you won't do that. You promise not to do that. The second question just asks you to hold up your passport. And then what we'll do is the AI will look at your passport. They will look at the picture and make sure the picture is the same as the person sitting the interview. And then we'll double check that with the passport picture that we have on your record to make sure all of those things match. Okay, all of those things match. We've got no problem at all. And on we go. Then your scored questions will begin, and you will be asked 14 of those. 14 of those. One is going to ask you, have you had a visa refusal before? And again, if you have or haven't, it's fine. If you've had one before, it doesn't mean that you're not going to get a visa. You just need to be very honest. Where you will get a refusal is if you aren't honest. Okay, if you've had a visa refusal in the past and you don't mention it, okay, either on your CAS Shield record, on your credibility interview, in your UK VI visa application, or your UK VI visa interview, you will get a 10-year ban, because they will check, UK VI will check all their records. They'll find all the information. And if you've had one before, it's an automatic 10-year ban. You don't want that in your life, okay? Because it doesn't only affect the UK, it will affect any visa applications to any other country that you try to apply for. So be honest. There's nothing wrong with being honest. Nobody minds if someone's had a visa refusal before. That's just the way of the world. But you need to be honest about it. You'll also be asked if you plan on bringing any dependents with you. Now, please be aware that unless you are studying for a PhD or an MSc research degree, okay, you cannot bring dependents with you. Cannot bring dependents with you. It's not allowed on any of the other visas. As a taught visa or as a taught visa postgraduate or undergraduate, it is not allowed. So you can answer that question there. But again, don't just say yes or no. Answer the question and say, give some reasons behind what the situation is or whatever, just to make it more than a straightforward yes/no answer. But they're scored very generally. The other 12 questions are scored much more specifically, okay? And we're going to talk a little bit about the kind of things that you're going to get asked. But you will get 15 seconds to read the question. Now, if you count out 15 seconds, it's quite a long time. So you'll be able to go through that question a number of times before you then have to give your answer. So you've got 15 seconds to read the question, then you go into your answer. And you will either get 60 seconds, or if it's a more complex question, 90 seconds to give your answer. That is a very long time. If you think about how much you can say, if you are well prepared in 60 to 90 seconds, it's quite a lot. Okay, and there should be plenty of time to be able to answer the question. Where it's not so long is if you're having to think off the top of your head because you haven't thought about the question already, where you have to kind of try and formalize the question or how you're going to actually structure the answer in your head before you give it. All of those things takes time. So you need to have done that preparation to make sure you're not wasting your time doing those things beforehand. Okay. Questions will be different, but they'll be related to similar things. So you may be asked things in a slightly different way, but they'll be about similar things and they'll be within the subject areas that we're going to talk about shortly. Okay, so if you've done research into those areas, as soon as you see that question, you should know, right, this is the kind of information I'm going to be talking about when I make my answer. And then you'll be ready, you'll be prepared, and away you go. Okay, so you answer all those questions, they are all scored, and then a certain level gets you a pass, underneath that does not. Okay, now I could tell you what the pass mark is, but in all honesty, it makes absolutely no difference, and because you're not going to know whether your answer, is up to that standard or not. What you need to do is do your best that you possibly can on every single answer. Okay, if you do that, no problem at all. If for some reason you don't pass, and there may be some people here today who haven't, you will get at least one resit chance. Okay. Now, some people, if they fail the first time, get a message from us telling us that they have to come and watch this credibility interview webinar before they can get a second chance. Okay, so there may be some people in that situation today, which is great, no problem at all. Hopefully you'll take on board, one, what happened in your first interview, and two, what we're going to talk about today, to go away, do a bit more preparation, do a bit more research in order to get a better score next time round. Okay, but everyone will get at least one opportunity. Some countries around the world get two opportunities, and that will be outlaid to you on CAS Shield. I know that doesn't sound very fair, but UKVI are much harsher on us and on applicants from certain countries than they are from others. So we have to be stricter in that regard as well. And we have to be careful about how that works, because obviously it's in no one's interest. It isn't in the university's interest, and it isn't in your interest to get visa refusal. So we have to keep those to an absolute minimum. So that's the way it works. And away you go, you answer all your questions. So before we get on to the subject area of what you're going to get asked about, let's just talk a little bit about the things that you can do to structure your answers to ensure that you're successful. Well, again, it's very easy for me to say, try not to worry, but try not to worry. The more you stress and worry about these things, the harder it is going to be for you to concentrate. You need to be able to concentrate on giving the best answers that you possibly can. And again, and going back to my analogy about examinations or writing a paper, if you have done a lot of research, if you've thought about this carefully and thought about what are the kind of things you're going to be asked, let me go away and find out as much about that as I possibly can. Let me think how this relates to me. Why am I doing this? Why have I made this decision? If you're going away and thinking about all those things beforehand, as soon as you walk into that examination room and you sit down and you turn your paper over and you look at the questions, you're like, okay, I know how to answer these questions. I'm prepared. If you sit down at that table and turn the paper over and go, I haven't really done any research, really. I haven't really done any preparation. I thought it'd be okay, and I'd just try and do it all last night. You're going to be stressed. You're going to be worried. It's going to make answering the question so much more difficult, let alone the lack of knowledge you have. So proper preparation prevents poor performance. Very important to be well prepared. Think about these things ahead of time. And again, it's a credibility interview. It's not about just facts and figures. It's a credibility interview. You've got to get across how you see things. So we put a little kind of an acronym together of SEEK, S-E-E-C, so you can go and seek out the best answers you possibly can. of how to structure and personalize the answers to the questions that you're going to have in front of you. Okay, because again, certain things are going to be asked for and looked at, and you need to make sure that you're ticking all of those boxes. So the first one, the subject, may sound very obvious. What exactly is the question asking you? And it's very easy, again, if you're a little bit stressed or worried, to misread the question. People do it in exam papers all the time. Okay, it's very easy to misread the question. Make sure you read that question carefully and you understand exactly what is being asked of you. You need to be sure of what you are being required to answer. So take your time, read through the question carefully. Is it a single part question? Maybe it has two parts. Maybe it asks the question and says, and why on the end, or ask something else completely different. But make sure you're answering both parts of the question, because if it's a two-parted question and you only answer one part, you can only get 50% of the mark if you gave the most perfect answer. Okay? For instance, there is a major difference between the question, do you plan on working while you're in the UK? And is it advantageous to work while you're in the UK? One is very, very specific to you. And you can say, yes, I do. And then give some of the reasons, or no, I don't. And give some of the reasons why personally you don't want to. But that's very different to say, what are the advantages and disadvantages of working while you're in the UK? Now, if you answer the first one about just you, for the second question, you're not going to do very well, okay? Because that's not what it's asking you. You can put your personal thoughts in there and say, well, you know, some people might find it advantageous for working because of this reason and this reason and this reason. But for myself, I'm not planning on working because of this reason, this reason, and this reason. Okay, you can do that, but you don't want to just say, well, I'm not going to work while I'm in the UK, so therefore it doesn't matter, to a question that asks you, well, what kind of things could be beneficial to working in the UK? You're not going to do very well if you answer it in that way. And that's just down to not reading the question properly. So make sure you understand the question. Follow that up with some evidence. Evidence is really important. Just the same as if you were writing an essay. You've got to back up whatever you say with evidence. Give some facts, give some reasons, okay, of why you're doing that. But in this instance, evidence isn't the only thing that matters, because this is a credibility interview. This is about your credibility. So you need to follow that up with with an explanation of how all of that evidence relates to you personally. Yes, it's great to have facts and figures, but how does that relate to you? How did that help you make your decision or point you in the right direction? Or was it the only thing you considered? Okay. What happens a lot we see is people rely on university rankings and scores and things like that, which don't really lay very much of a picture. Okay. So you need to make things wider than, I picked this university because it's ranked at such and such in the country. Can't just say, I want to go to the UK because their higher education system is great. So are many other countries' higher education system. You can't say, oh, I want to go to the UK because, you know, the education system's great. They've got Oxford and Cambridge. Well, you're not going to Oxford and Cambridge. You need to talk about the university that you all go into. Okay, so it's got to be specific. It's got to be about you personally, because it's a credibility interview. And then the other big one, which people forget and comes up time and time again, particularly for UKVI, is that last C, which is comparison. You need to compare the decision that you made, the reasons that you have for doing what you did, with other options that you decided not to go for. So you decided to come and study at the UK. Why didn't you decide to go and study in Australia or New Zealand or Canada or Germany, or stay in your home country for that matter? There's got to be a reason. There's got to be a comparison. Coming to the UK is going to allow you to do things that you might not be able to do somewhere else. Okay, and give you options that may not be the same in other instances. But it's got to be specific. It can't just relate to any other country. You know, it's got to be specific. Same about Bangor University. Say you're asked why you wanted to come to study at Bangor University. You need to be able to compare Bangor to other options that you decided not to take. Because again, a credible student is going to have thought about a lot of different options and not just gone, oh, I'll just pick that one. That doesn't make you come across as a credible student. If you didn't think about anywhere else, it makes you come across as somebody who doesn't really care about where they're going or what they're doing and haven't put any thought into it. That's your credibility gone. Okay, so you need to be able to say, well, you know, I looked at this university and this university and this university, but I picked Bangor because it offered me A, B, C. This university, I could do this, this, and this, but it didn't really necessarily fit exactly with what I wanted to do. Or Bangor University was a better fit for me for these different reasons. And give what the reasons are, not just say it was a better fit, because that doesn't explain or tell us anything. Okay? So get the subject right, back it up with evidence, explain how all that relates to you personally, and give some comparisons for options that you decided not to take. Okay, back to my analogy of going on holiday for a week. I picked, I don't know, Lisbon in Portugal, but I didn't pick Copenhagen in Denmark. Why did I decide not to go to Copenhagen and decide to go to Lisbon? There could be a whole heap of different reasons for that, couldn't there, as to why that might be. But I need to explain them, you know, because this isn't going on holiday. This is getting a visa to come and study in the United Kingdom. So you've got to be very specific about how that works. So the big one, what kind of questions are you going to be asked? Well, this is a kind of a good breakdown of the sections that you're going to get asked at your credibility interview, with particular instance on the kind of questions you're going to get asked at UK VI interview. Okay, so you are definitely going to get asked about Bangor University. Why did you pick Bangor University as opposed to thousands of other universities around the world? Why did you pick it? What does Bangor give you that nowhere else can? Or, you know, is there something specific about the place, about the, you know, the study options, etc., that works particularly for you? Okay, and if you say, well, I picked Bangor University because it's ranked 60 in the country, well, that's great and fine. But there'll be another university that was ranked 59 and another university that was ranked 61. So what's the difference between those really at the end of the day? Okay, you need to be able to explain a bit more about the university. Go on the university website, find out about it as much as you possibly can. A credible student, in the eyes of UKVI, will have done this already, will know why they've picked Bangor University, will have very good ideas in their head about why this university is right for them. Doesn't necessarily make it better or worse than any other university. It just means that it's right for you. Okay, so you need to have a good think about how you could answer that and make it very clear. The same with UK higher education. You're applying for a visa for the UK. Okay, so why do you want to study in the UK? What is it about the UK that works for you? Why do you not want to study in a different country? Okay. So you need to be able to explain what it is about the UK, the UK higher education system, etc., that makes this the right fit for you. Again, other universities in other countries probably would have been just as good a fit, but you need to explain why you've made the decision that you have. Okay. The most important one out of all of it, and the one where we see people slip up the most, which I find quite strange, is talking about your chosen course. Now, at the core of everything, after you've, you know, before you've, more importantly, your university or the country you're studying in, surely is the course that you've decided to study. Okay, that's the key to everything, because you're going to get a degree from that course, which is the whole purpose of you being here. That's the point of it. Okay, everything else is extra on top, but the point is to get that degree. So why did you pick this course? What does it give you maybe that other courses don't? What modules are you going to be doing? What's the module content? How many modules do you have to take? What are the credits overall? Are they all mandatory modules? Do you get to choose any? How does it all work? How does it all get put together? Are you going to be having lectures? Are you going to be having seminars or group sessions? you need to have a real good knowledge about your course. And again, UKVI would say, well, a credible student would know this already. Why have you picked your course if you don't even know anything about it? So you need to show that you've got a good knowledge about your course. More important than anything else. Because if you get called to UKVI and they say, oh, I'm going to pick a module, tell me about this module. What are some of the things that you're going to get taught in this module? And you can't give them an answer, that will be the end of it. Okay. So go on the website, learn all about your course. If you haven't done already, I would hope that you have. But if you haven't, get on the university, learn all about the different modules that you're going to be doing, so that you can explain that. Because again, knowing it in your head is fine, but you've got to be able to explain that to either a UKVI officer or on CAS Shield. Okay, so you need to know details about it. You also need to be able to talk about how it relates to your academic history or your work history. How does it fit in with what you've done previously? And also, as we'll get onto shortly, as to where you want to go in the future. Again, you're going to have to be able to talk about your accommodation. Lots of accommodation choices out there: university accommodation, private accommodation, shared accommodation, single. There's 101 different options out there. What accommodation choices have you made? Even if you haven't made a finalised decision, what do you think you're going to do? Where would you like to be? Do you want to be in university accommodation with other people in a shared flat, because then you get to know people? Would you prefer to be on your own because you want to, have that solitude to study, or whatever else it may be? There'll be 101 different options. But again, a credible student will have thought about this in advance. You're not just going to turn up at Bangor and get off the plane and go, oh yeah, I need somewhere to live. You're going to have thought about this in advance, and this is all part of the process, as to why you've made the decisions. And if you can explain all that, it adds to your credibility. It shows the UKVI officer that, yeah, I am a credible student because I'm thinking about all these things. I've taken all these things into consideration. I know I've got to do all this as a student, so therefore I've done them. I'm prepared. I'm ready. And then you can talk about what you have chosen or what you think you're going to choose, and why you've not chosen the other options. Okay. Again, get on the university website, read about the different accommodation options. Okay. We've got links there also to private providers, the kind of accommodation they've got. We can give you an idea of costs. All those things are important, because the next section we're going to talk about, and you're going to get asked about, is funding and finances. Okay. You're going to need to know and be able to prove to UKVI, obviously, you've got the money. You do that by your bank accounts and student loans or whatever else it may be, to prove that you've got the money available. And you're going to need to explain to a UKVI officer that you're a credible student and you've thought about the fact that you're going to be here, I don't know, as a master's student for a year, that the course is a year long. Yes, you've been asked to prove that you've got £10,539 in spending money to cover your accommodation and your food and everything else. Is that enough, do you think? Are you going to need any more than that? If it's that amount, how's that going to work for you? How are you going to budget that money to make sure that you've still got money left at the end of the year? How are you going to make sure that you cover your rent? How much is your rent going to be? How much do you think you're going to pay for food and transport, wherever else it may be, on a monthly basis? A credible student would have gone, right, okay, this is how much money I've got. I've got to live off this. I've got to ensure that I can survive for a year on the money that I've got. So therefore, I'm going to need to budget. Otherwise, 6 months in, there's going to be no money left. And UKVI do not want people in country who can't support themselves, okay? Because that is a cause for you to be removed from the country. And we don't want that. We want you to be here to finish your studies. So you need to have thought about those things. And again, like I say, I would expect a credible student to have done that. If I'm going on holiday for 1 week, I'm thinking, how much money have I got? Can I afford to do this? How am I going to pay for it? Okay, this is a much, much bigger situation than that. You're going to need to know about the UKVI visa rules. If you are applying for a visa, okay, you need to be sure that you are going to abide by all the rules of that visa. You can't abide by the rules of the visa if you don't know what the visa rules are. So go on the UKVI website, find out what visa rules are for your visa. The big one for that is working. How many hours a week can you work while you're here? Can you work longer during vacation times and term times? If so, what are the hours for that? If you're a master's student, when are your term times? When are the times when you're allowed to work longer hours during vacation, etc.? You need to know all these things. Even if you don't plan on working while you're here, you need to know the regulations, because you are applying for a visa which you then have to abide by. You have to know the rules of that if you're going to abide by it, so that you're not going to break them and be in any danger of being asked to leave the country, etc. So go and find out what they are, so that you know how to answer those questions well. You know, the other big one, particularly with UKVI, is being able to talk about your future plans and your career goals. Okay, yes, you're going to come in, you're going to get this visa, you're going to study, you're going to earn this degree. Then what you're going to do? Okay, and they don't expect you, we don't expect you to be able to give us a complete 5 or 10 year plan on what you're going to do in the future. But what you do have to be able to do is explain why this degree you're doing is going to be helpful to you. Why are you doing this degree? What's the point of it? Because a credible student would not be coming here to spend a very large amount of money on tuition and living expenses to get a qualification which they don't really know why they're doing it. Okay, if you want to prove your credibility, you'll be able to say, this is what I've done in the past. This maybe is my study or my work history. This degree takes me to the next step. When I've taken that next step, I can then do A, B, C. I can go in these different directions. It will allow me to do this. Okay. Again, if you turn around and say, I'm going to get this, I want to get this MBA in management so that I can go and work for McDonald's or Coca-Cola. Anybody could say that. It's not, it doesn't help your credibility. You will need to talk much more specifically about what your plans are. You might want to do that. One, is it realistic? Maybe, maybe not. But if you do want to go and work for Coca-Cola, what do you want to do for them? Where do you want to get to? Where do you see yourself? Is that your ultimate goal and your ultimate dream? Is that another stepping stone to get you somewhere else? So it's being able to say, these are the reasons why I want to come to this country, to study at this university, doing this course, to get this qualification, which will allow me then to go on in the future to do whatever it is that I want to be able to do. It's about your credibility. Yeah. It's nothing more credible than being able to talk about the whole reason, there's the whole purpose why you're doing this in the first place. Where is it going to get you? Where is it going to take you? You're also going to get asked a little bit about UK culture and society. Again, if you're going to another country, hopefully you're going to want to know how you're going to fit in. What's life like there? What do people do? What's the music like? What do people do in their social time? What's happening in politics? What about the area that I'm going to? What do I know about North Wales? How is it different to the rest of the UK? What do I know about Bangor itself and the surrounding area? What am I going to do while I'm here? Am I going to go and do a bit of travelling? Do I want to go up to Scotland or over to Ireland or down to England? What are the kind of places that I would like to see while I'm here? And again, if you get asked those questions and you can say, oh yeah, I'm looking forward to going up to Edinburgh because I've heard about such and such, or I want to go to this particular place, or it just looks like a beautiful city and I want to walk around it and go to this museum or this museum. That shows your credibility. That shows you've really thought about the fact you're coming here for an extended period of time. If you're asked, if you can talk about Bangor and talk about what's here and what kind of things you expect to see and do while you're in the area, it adds to your credibility because it shows you've thought about it. If you sit there and say, you know, I saw a visa refusal letter that said the student got asked this question and they said, oh, I want to go to London and I've heard of Buckingham Palace. 7,000 people can say that answer. You know, everybody can say that answer because that's the kind of thing everybody knows about. If you can talk about things that aren't common knowledge apart from for that particular area or in particular places, it shows you've done some research. It shows you've put some thought into it, which again adds to your credibility. That's what it's all about. Okay. And again, I would expect that anyway. We would expect a credible student to be like, oh, I'm excited to go to Bangor. What do I know about Bangor? What's it going to be like when I get there? And answering all these questions in detail aren't just important to be able to pass a test, to be able to pass an interview, to be able to get a visa. Okay, that's looking at it the wrong way round. The purpose of knowing all this stuff is so that you're best placed, so that you're well prepared, so that you're coming to the right university to do the right degree, so that when you get here, you know what to expect, that you can hit the ground running, that you can make the absolute most of your time here. That's the way to look at it, because that's your credibility in a nutshell, is being able to talk about all these things. Now, the last things you're going to get asked about are your personal interests and your opinions. That's really just for CAS Shield. You won't get asked that in UKVI, and that's for us trying to just relax you a little bit and get you into the idea of actually answering questions about you personally. Okay, I don't know, what's the last book you read? What's your favourite style of music? It could be a million and one different things down those lines, but it will be specific about you, what your opinions and thoughts on a particular matter. I don't know, if you could have 3 people to dinner from any stage of history, who would they be? Little things like that, just to get you thinking and talking about stuff personally. Okay, they're not quite as important as the other questions, but we want to see your personal opinions. We want you to be able to talk about things from a personal perspective, because again, that's what all of these other questions are about. It's about your personal opinions, perspective, to get across that credibility. So, last bit really, when should you make the attempts for your interview? Well, most importantly, don't put it off until the last minute. Okay, please don't leave it to the last minute. The fact that you're all here now for a September intake is brilliant. It means you're being really smart and sensible and trying to get your CAS as soon as possible. You can get your visa as soon as possible. So all those stresses and worries are out of the way. But don't put it off. But make sure you feel confident and ready. Like I said, you're standing outside that exam room. You've done lots of research, you've done lots of preparation, you feel confident and ready, door opens, in you go, you start answering the questions and everything's great. That's because you've properly prepared and you've properly researched. If you haven't done that, you're not going to be ready. And it's going to be obvious when you take your interview that that's the case. Just as importantly, don't take your interview until you can give it your full attention. Okay? If you can, do what I've done today. Go somewhere with a door that shuts. Tell everybody that you're doing an interview, in this case for me a webinar. Everybody outside knows not to disturb me. Leave me alone, okay? Because I need to concentrate. If people are coming through the door, I'm going to lose track of where I am. I'm not going to know what's happening, and it's going to affect the quality of the webinar. Same thing. If you're in a noisy place, or there's people coming and going and moving about behind you or whatever, it's going to make it very difficult for you to give it your full attention. Now, I watched an interview about 6 months ago that was done by a guy on his mobile phone while he was walking down a busy street. Now, you can imagine that it was very difficult to hear what he was saying. He was having to sidestep people. The answers that he was giving, he wasn't able to give that his full attention in any way, shape or form. And unsurprisingly, he failed very badly and got a very low score. I had to have a good conversation with him about why it might not be appropriate to do that. So what we need you to do is make sure you can give it your full attention. I've got a laptop here. I've got it on a stand. I know that it's not going to wobble about or fall over. I've got headphones on with a good microphone in, so I can really concentrate. Yeah, if you haven't got a laptop, that's fine. That's okay. If you're doing it on your mobile phone, fine. It does make it a bit harder to read the questions, but that's okay. But if you can make sure it's kind of really well stood up, so it's not going to fall over halfway through, you don't want anything that's going to distract you or cause you not to be able to give your full attention to what you're doing. Okay. I always have a drink with me. I'm talking away at the moment. I might get thirsty. If I've got frog in my throat, I'm not going to be able to think very clearly about the answers I'm giving. I'm going to be thinking about the fact that I'm coughing all the time. Little things like that. Little things just to make sure that nothing's going to stand in the way of you doing the best that you possibly can. And then you can get on and just concentrate on answering the questions. So that wraps it up really as we go, dead on time. Fantastic. So in conclusion, like I said, you've heard me say prepare, prepare, prepare. Proper preparation really does prevent poor performance. If you prepared well, you'll perform well. It almost goes hand in hand, okay? Go seek out those best answers. Make sure you're sure of the subject. Back it up with evidence. Give an explanation of how it relates to you personally, and add some comparisons of the things you decided not to do. That's the best way to structure your answers. And you can do that easily within 60 to 90 seconds. Personalize, personalize, personalize. No generic answers. If you hear yourself giving a generic answer, realize that that's not going to work. Prepare all these things in advance. Do that research, but sit there and have a practice interview. You know, write out a few questions on the topic that we've spoken about, and actually say them verbally, because it's very different thinking something in your head to actually speaking it out loud. Now, you may be able to think about the most complex answer in your head, but when you try and verbalize that, it doesn't come out in the way you wish it to. So practice, have a practice interview. It doesn't take that long. Go through, record it, play it back to yourself, have a look and see how you sound. Listen to that and put yourself in the shoes of a UK VI officer, and say, if a UK VI officer was listening to this, would they think I am a credible student? Would they think this is a good answer to the question that I've been asked? Okay. Be enthusiastic if you can. You know, if you've got some enthusiasm because you're really looking forward to coming here, you're really looking forward to studying, you're looking forward to coming to Bangor, you know, let that come across. It all adds to your credibility. Yeah, all adds to your credibility. You can do all those things, you shouldn't have too many problems at all. And if you do that, hopefully in the next few months, in September, you'll be getting on that aeroplane, you'll be coming to the UK for what we hope will be one of the most amazing experiences of your life. I can guarantee if you come here, okay, if you come here, this is a period of your life that you will remember forever and will be life-changing for you. You do not want to put all that at risk because you didn't prepare and research properly for an interview. Okay? All of you, if you do that preparation and do that research, can pass this interview and can pass your UK VI interview and get on that plane and come to Bangor. And you can be sitting there looking at that view of the old part of the university and the more modern Pontio building in front of you, thinking, yeah, this is going to be one of the greatest experiences of my life. And we really want you here. Okay, I can't express that to you enough. We really want you here because international students change the whole structure and makeup of the university here. Okay, having students as we do from over 100 different countries gives such a wonderful international flavour to Bangor, not just the university, but the whole city. Okay, Bangor is not the most diverse city in the world. It's not London. It isn't Manchester. So having international students here is fantastic. You get to learn all about the UK. You get to learn all about Wales and the Welsh culture and society. And our own students, well, we get to learn all about you. We get to learn about where you've come from and your life and your cultures and your backgrounds. And that is nothing but a fantastic thing. It's a two-way process. So we really want you here because you make such a massive difference to this university. Okay? So don't let the reasons why you don't get here be because you failed an interview. That's the presentation over. I'm now going to go to answering questions. If you want to write your questions down in the chat, please do so. I'll stick around for as long as you want me to answer questions. If I can't answer them all, I'll go away, find out answers and send them to you. Okay, so let's have a look in the chat and see what kind of questions that we've already been asked. Someone says, I'm waiting for my scholarship approval before I go ahead with CAS Shield. I wouldn't do that if I was you. You have absolutely nothing to lose by completing CAS Shield before. Why wait for your scholarship to arrive before you complete CAS Shield? All you have to do is upload all your documentations and take the interview. Okay, so why wait to do all those things after you've got your scholarship decision? Do them now, then you're ready. Then when your scholarship comes through, all you've got to do is add the scholarship details to CAS Shield, and we can get you your CAS letter within a day. Okay, if everything's done and in place, get your CAS letter out straight away. If you've done nothing and you're waiting for your scholarship, and then you've got to upload all your documentation and your TB certificates if you need one, and you'll do your interview and everything else, all that's going to do is get you closer and closer and closer to the deadline. And then if things take a turn for whatever reason or something doesn't work out, then you've lost all that time and effort. So get everything on CAS Shield done. There's no cost for doing it on CAS Shield. There's nothing, no payment that you have to make. Get everything ready so that you're ready to go. Someone says, is there a score? Like, do I need to hit 10 out of 12 questions? There is an overall score. So you can do less well in one question as long as you do slightly better in another question. There are certain questions that we need you to do very well on all of them. But as long as you get an aggregate score, you can pass. Okay, so yes, there is a score, and yes, you do need to pass, but it's not like you can pass 10 questions and do really badly in 4 others. You know, it will level out to a certain degree, but you need to have scored well over the course of all the questions. What is the faith of someone who is not really outspoken or an introvert in this case, in this interview? So I'm guessing what you mean is it harder to do the interview if you are an introvert? Yes, that may well be the case, but it's not really about whether you're introverted or extroverted. It's about the information that you have. It's about the knowledge that you have. You're not going to get scored badly on the fact that you may not come across as so confident. You're going to get scored on the information that you provide. Okay? This is a necessity, because whether you're introverted or not, you may well get called to UKVI interview, and they're going to expect you to be able to answer with information and to talk about your personal circumstances. It's the only way they can judge you and judge your credibility. So it may make things a little bit harder for you, but my advice then is to make sure you are really, really well prepared and that you're ready to go. Okay, the good thing about the CAS Shield interview is that you're not having to talk to a human being. You're just reading a question and answering it. So there isn't anybody on the other end watching you or thinking about you or judging you or anything else. You're just recording that interview that someone's going to come along and watch later on. Okay. Someone said, what are the reasons of failure that are not mentioned? And is it best to use the external headphones with a microphone rather than a built-in microphone? In all honesty, whatever you've got, as long as you can be heard and seen, the sound quality doesn't have to be the most amazing thing in the world. It's whatever works best for you and whatever you have available to you. The reasons for failure, you know, I can't go through it enough. The reasons for failure are not preparing well. That's the only reason why people fail, to be honest with you. They're not thinking about the fact that this is a credibility interview. They're not going into that depth to say, I have to prove my credibility. I can't just say generic information about the UK or UK higher education or accommodation or whatever else it may be. I need to speak specifically about my personal circumstances. And that's not and shouldn't be that difficult to do. Okay, to talk about the reasons why you've decided to do things. It isn't just facts and figures. That doesn't prove credibility. Being able to spout a load of facts and figures that you've read off the internet doesn't prove your credibility at all. In fact, it probably does the opposite. Talking about your personal experiences and why you've made the decisions you have, that is what proves your credibility. Okay. Questions. Can we exchange number for better preparation? I think that's probably people talking to themselves. Can I inquire about the appropriate duration? See, this is an interesting one. Can I inquire about the appropriate duration of the CAS Shield AI interview? Now, I specifically said while we were talking that it's not an AI interview, and yet an hour after me saying that, somebody's written down that it's an AI interview. It's not an AI interview, okay? These sessions are judged by a human being. Your answers will be looked at and scored and assessed by a human being, not AI, okay? So, as I said, it's about 14 questions long. You've got 2 other questions as well at the beginning that take between 60 and 90 seconds each. So if you time 16 by 1 minute, you get 16 minutes. Okay, some of those are going to be slightly longer. There are going to be gaps in between while you go from one question to the next. So we're talking about half an hour total. Okay. So I want to ensure I pace my responses and manage my time effectively during the session. Well, like I said, the time you get to answer a question is either going to be 60 seconds or 90 seconds. But that's how long you've got to make your answer. Do we need require amount in bank account to take pre-CAS interview for proof? No, you don't. You can take your pre-CAS interview before. You don't have to say, well, I've got this much money in my account already. You just need to talk about the money that is required of you or money that you expect to have. It's not going to get cross-checked against your bank statement at this point, because you can do your interview before you've even uploaded any documentation if you wish to. You can do it at any point. So you really don't need to worry about that one. Good question, though. Mentioned 16 questions were asked, but you only discussed 9 topics. Well, as I said, 2 of those you're not going to get asked about those particular areas because they're on specific things. One is to hold up your passport. Another is to read out a statement. Another is about your whether you're bringing dependents, and another is about a visa refusal. So that takes us down to 4 things that we've talked about there out of the 16. That brings us down to 12. And the 9 questions that you get asked will mainly be asked, they'll be asked from the areas that I covered, plus things about your personal opinions or situations that you've been in, etc., etc., etc. So they'll cover the other areas. But the 9 areas that I've covered specifically are the ones that you really, really, really need to prepare for. Okay, hope that makes that clear. Can you please tell us about question preparation and answer time during the interview? I think I've done that. Like I said, you get 15 seconds to prepare, read your question, and you get 60 to 90 seconds to make your answer. Somebody said, I received my conditional offer, but haven't yet received your CAS Shield email. You will definitely have had a CAS Shield email if you have got a conditional offer. Okay, if you haven't, please check your junk folders and your trash. If you really haven't, get back to us on the online admissions portal and we will send another copy out to you. How soon can one apply for CAS and consequently the visa? Do I have to get my scholarship approved before I can apply for the CAS or visa? Yes, you have to get your scholarship approved. We won't issue your CAS before your scholarship's in place. Because you won't get a visa unless you have a proof of your scholarship. So there's no point us issuing a CAS if you haven't got everything in place to allow you to get a visa. That's the whole purpose of the CAS. You can apply for your CAS anywhere up to 6 months and apply for your visa 6 months in advance. Okay, so we're within that phase now. You can enter the country a month prior to your course starting. So from any point onwards now, you can get your CAS, and we're issuing CASs to people every day at this moment in time. Okay, so people are starting their visa applications. Some people have got their visas already. Okay, so that's happening. Someone said, thank you very much. Thank you very much. I appreciate you listening and being involved. Someone said, please specify for me, is the pre-CAS interview the same as the CAS Shield interview? On the CAS, but I answered the pre-CAS interviews. Okay, so the pre-CAS interview, CAS Shield is the name of the software, of the program that you're running, and the pre-CAS interview is your CAS interview because you have to do it pre getting your CAS letter. Okay, so it's a pre-CAS interview. Okay, so we will only ask you for one interview. If you have another interview, it will be your UK VI interview once you make your visa application, but you'll only ever do one particular interview type with us. Okay. When is the result of the pre-CAS interview available after taking the test? That's a very good question. Normally takes between 24 and 48 hours, or 2 working days, 1 to 2 working days. So if you took the test on a Friday, say, you might not get a result to the Tuesday, because that wouldn't include Saturday and Sunday, because they're not working days. So it's normally 1 to 2 working days before you get your result. Can they ask about my immigration or travel history? Absolutely they can and will. It's not something really we'll talk about too much in the interviews, other than you may get a question saying, have you had a visa refusal? In fact, you will get a question saying, have you had a visa refusal in the past? And you can say yes or no to that. But whatever you do, be honest. Okay, don't try and pretend it hasn't happened or ignore it. If you've had it, you've had it. It's going to show up on your record. Okay, so you can definitely get asked about that. Any other questions while we're here? That's a lot of really useful questions. You've all been really attentive, and I appreciate that very much indeed. I hope you find this useful. I know I've gone through things in quite a lot of detail. A copy of this recording will be available within the next 24 hours, so you can come back and watch this again and again and again if you really want to. There's also another recording of a webinar, a guidance webinar on the website. So again, you can watch that anytime you want. It's very similar. It's me doing the recording. It works in a very similar way. So make the most of it. If you need to go back and look at the slides, etc., please make sure that you do that. Okay. So someone said, I got another university offer letter, so can I mention that in your answer? You can, but the point of this going for a CAS and going for your visa, you won't be looking at more than one university's offer. So you need to talk about that specific university, okay? Because if you're talking about another university at that point, then you haven't made your decision. Okay, so we won't be able to offer a CAS letter until you've said, yes, I definitely want to come, and this is the university that I want to come to, not to any other university. Okay, and somebody said, do I have to read the questions out loud? You do, otherwise we won't be able to know what's going on, because we can't see into your head. So yes, you will have to read the questions. Oh, sorry, no, you said the questions, my bad. I'm thinking of the answers. So you don't have to read the questions out loud. You just read the questions off the sheet. Sorry, that was my bad. You don't need to read the questions out loud, but obviously you need to give your answers out loud, put it that way. Someone said, I did an interview on the CAS platform, but I did not need to read the questions out loud. I typed the questions in a box. No, I don't think. You didn't type anything. If you did a CAS Shield interview, you have to talk, just like I'm doing now. And the recording will look very much like what you're seeing me on the screen. So yeah, you won't be typing any responses into a box. Okay, I don't know where you've got that from. You will have to do exactly as I've told you, and record your interview for it to be reviewed later on. Okay, if you could type and nobody could see your face, we wouldn't know who would be the typing. So it'd be no good. Okay, right, I'm going to leave it there. If anyone else has got questions, please feel free to put them in the chat, and I will look at them in the next kind of half an hour or so and give you answers. If you want to take another guidance webinar, there's a couple on every week. Feel free to join in. The next one will be by my colleague Ahmed, who will go through things with you, obviously very similar way. You can watch this recording as many times as you like, but all I would say is please take it seriously. This process is serious, so please, please, please make sure you take it seriously. And just with that in mind, someone said, is it forbidden to use external software while taking the pre-CAS interview? If you mean by looking at other software that will give you answers and then you're going to read those answers, automatic keyboard doesn't make any sense, because you're going to be speaking the answers, not writing them down. So if you're going to do anything which means that you're going to read an answer and not just give it the answer from your brain, then yes, you're going to fail if you do that. Okay, you can't read any answers from anywhere else. You have to give the answer verbally. Okay, it's exactly what you'll have to do in your UKVI interview. So yeah, that's not going to work. Okay, Any other questions, write them down. Otherwise, I will leave you in peace. Thank you very much for attending, and I hope that you've all found it very useful. Thank you.